Sorry for the slight delay, everybody, on Boy Green Daily, but we're here on a Saturday morning to talk about the explosive NFL cap jumping to a number that no one expected. And how the heck does that affect Bryce Huff and the New York Jets? We'll dive in right now. Let's go.
Zoinks! But it is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show.
Come on, people. Connor Rogers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor gosh darn Sycamore, baby, for me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever been on.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas.
Good morning, everybody. Paul Esden Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video show, and also available wherever you get your podcast. And we've got a juicy Saturday here thanks to breaking NFL news yesterday about the cap. We'll get into that, the new Jets cap space available, the franchise tag numbers, all that's now official now that the cap has been released to all the NFL teams. So let's go to my father. Hop on Pop. Joining us here on the program, the senior and junior have combined their powers. It's Thanos Infinity Stones all together here, baby. So let's bring them in. My father, Paul Esden Sr., here on the show. What's up, father? Good hat there.
Hey now, how's it going?
Excellent. So, yeah, like I said, sometimes what I love about this show is that you get to do it every day, which is phenomenal. Of course, it's a blessing with all the wonderful fans that have been waiting patiently for this show to start. And also, I love that content happens all the time when you least expect it. So we get the news from the NFL. So this affects all NFL teams, of course. The new salary cap for the 2024 season is $255.4 million. That is $250,000, folks, and that is for every NFL team, which is a $30 million increase over what it was last year, and that is a $12 to $13 million increase over projection, which were all massive numbers there as well. And Dad, it's funny because I know you're wearing the Jets memorabilia, you're repping that. But it's funny, we go back to the Cowboys dynasty of the 90s, and someone tweeted out the number. I don't know if you let me ask you, do you know the number of what cap space was for NFL teams in 1994 before everything started getting crazy? Do you know that number?
Is it 100 million?
37 million was apparently what teams in the NFL. So people, think about that for a second. So it was around 37 million was the cap for the entire team in 1994. The cap today in 2024 is $255 million. I mean, whoa. It just shows you the explosion of the free agency area. Obviously, TV deals. Part of this increase in money this season was because of COVID, because obviously there's money lost and money regained, and eventually that was going to be pushed back into the pot. I just don't think anyone expected it to be this year. So there's a lot of explosive reasons for why this money has dramatically increased, but this helps out every team. So I think a question that people bring up all the time is like, ooh, now the Jets or Cowboys or all these teams could spend all kinds of new money. And that's true, I guess. The money is available for some of these people. But I think the most important piece of the puzzle here is for the teams that are on the edge. You know, they may be negative. There's still 7, 8, 9 teams in the league that are still in the red as it pertains to cap space. And the teams like the Bears, Patriots, and Commanders who already had $1 billion, they have like $1 billion and some more. It's like water buckets in the ocean for those people. But I think it's more important for some of these teams who are on the edge or in a tougher cap space situation like the Jets. The Jets' new number is $15 million in cap room now that they have available, and that's before any restructure. But it makes some of these in-house decisions a little more interesting because you have more money than you thought, which opens the door potentially for a franchise tag. And that's kind of what we're talking about here with Bryce Huff. By the way, that official tag number is actually a little less than projected. It's at $21 million for a defensive end, plus the new money that the Jets came in debt. So I'll throw it to you first. Bryce Huff. It's been a debate all offseason whether the Jets should tag him or not tag him. now that they have an influx of money, my first thought, and I tweeted it out, sounds like enough money to tag Bryce Huff now, the talented defensive lineman. What say you?
So, and you're talking about tag him for retention, not tag him to trade him, right?
So I'm saying tag him for one of either, because if you do nothing, I believe he's going to hit the open market. Like, I'll tell you guys this. I won't tell you the specifics of the message, but I reached out to Bryce Huff yesterday, and I was just curious his thoughts on the cap expanding. And I will just tell you, he had a very interesting response. He seemed very excited. I'll put it that way, that the cap has exploded. So I say that you should tag him, because that opens the door, of course, for a trade, or keeping him, or signing him to a long-term deal, because then you have all the way till June, July range to potentially negotiate. If you don't tag him, then I think you're just going to lose him, and he will sign with the highest bidder in free agency. So I think it opens up your options. So yes, I am for tagging. That is correct.
Yeah. And you prefer to tag him and keep him, right?
If they tag him, I want them to extend him on a long-term deal. I don't think I'm for tagging him and just keeping him on the $21 million.
Yeah, so you want to, right. Okay. Yeah. So I think it's a terrible idea.
Okay. To tag him.
To tag him at all.
Okay.
Right. Unless you could work out. And by the way, I'm sure it's okay, but the setup ahead of time tag and trade actually seems sleazy, and that it's circumventing the collective bargaining agreement by that, which prevents him from going to free agency. So I would say apparently teams do it, but the first time you mentioned it, to me, that seems like if the Players Association wanted to, they could sue and win that. Because if you truly did it and that just prevented them from going to get their full rights in free agency, seems like that's... But anyways, I'm going to give you some information.
Oh, I appreciate information.
So this is why I wouldn't tag Bryce Huff.
Okay.
Right?
Mhm.
Because if he doesn't sign a long-term deal, right, now you're $6 million over the cap.
Yes, that's math.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, that is math. And the Jets, and I got a lot of numbers for you this morning, but I would not pay someone roughly 10% of my cap space. It's a little less. It's 8%, whatever.
Yeah.
For somebody that his entire career has had 40 solo tackles. 40. That's not a mistake. Tune up. Listen to what I said. 40 solo for someone that says, I want more playing time. His entire career, he's had 40 solo tackles. 1 year, he had 10 sacks. On a different team, he would not have those sacks. Before this year, he's had 2 or 3 something. I think this year beats all his other years combined, is close. So anyways, this is not where the Jets need to spend that amount of money. And so I say no. If you could get that, dirty tag and trade, then I think I would do that.
Just to add to your point, you are right. He had, prior to this season, we just had 10 sacks. He had 7.5 sacks combined over his first 3 seasons. He's played in the league for 4 years. So this past year trumped all of his other years combined. That's correct.
Right. So, and I believe the 10 sacks are a result of the defense he was on. He would not see those results on another defense. And he's a liability in the run game as the 40 solo tackles. To put in comparison, a comparable NFL player, and I'm not going to have their exact, I'm not going to have their exact, number of plays and stuff like that, but he had like 15 tackles this year. DeMarcus Lawrence, was in the hundreds, right? So it's just a comparable, and he doesn't play every down either. I'm just saying, if you stack it up, it's not the output. So this is not where the Jets have a lot of holes, and he's not one of them. That's why I wouldn't. I do believe if you could get the tag and trade, take that money to the bank.
Yeah, let me see here. I just wanted to double check. Yeah, Demarcus Lawrence played 57% of the snaps this year. I'm pretty sure Bryce Huff was at 42%, but I have that number here. Yeah, 42. So he played 15% less than but Lawrence. But to your point, Lawrence basically his entire career has played in that 50 to 60% range. There's only been one spike season where he got into 70%, but that was an outlier in 2018. But most of the time he's been a 50, 60% guy. So he's been a little bit higher. Well, at 15%, that's a significant percentage, but still, interesting. Yeah, Lawrence had 50 tackles this year, it looks like. So he had a few more, but he played 15% more of the snaps. So
a few more, 10 more than his entire career. So, anyways, I'm not dwelling on Demarcus Lawrence. That wasn't the reason. It's just a comparison. And he wants more playing time. He's not worth the money, right? I'll give you another example where the Jets overpaid for incompetency.
Do tell.
Right?
Yeah.
So when we signed, and I said I've got the hat on.
I heard that. Yeah, very nice.
We signed whatever his name, Lazard, right?
Alan Lazard, yeah.
Yeah. So they should put out an APB for Alan Lazard because he stole from the Jets.
Yeah.
He stole from them. But I will tell you that the Jets allowed him to. Like, they left the car running with all the money in the back seat, the $44 million, because Alan Lazard, his numbers were not great this year. Bless you. His numbers were not great this year, but they weren't that far off from his career average that we paid all that money for. If you look at Lazard's numbers, they're not that impressive. He had 1 year that was a big year, but even that year was under 800 yards.
Yeah, he's never had a 1,000-yard season. Yeah, I have all his numbers in front of me here.
And he had a couple 400 or 500-yard seasons.
That's correct. Yeah, 2018, that was the year he was an undrafted free agent, was initially with the Jaguars, came into the Packers. So he didn't really play that year, so whatever. He had a catch and 7 yards. But then the next bunch of years where we started getting more playing time, 30 catches for, I'm rounding these numbers, 30 catches, 400-something yards, 30 catches, 400-something yards, 40 catches, 500 yards. And then he came off his career year, which is 60 catches, 788 yards, and then he had a bunch of touchdowns in between those seasons, 3, 8, and 6 before coming to the Jets. Yeah, right. But not impressive. Not $44 million. Yeah.
Right. And so I say both the Huff thing and the Lazard thing because the Jets need to focus. They need to lay out a comprehensive plan, evaluate their talent, identify exactly the holes they need to fill, exactly how much money they have, exactly who they're going to extend to free up more cap space. Because $15 million, the extra money that we didn't know was coming, is the only cap space they have. And so they've got to be prudent with this. But, right, they're not in a lot of room, especially with the first-round draft pick they have. That's guaranteed going to take a chunk of that 15. So
yeah, sure.
They need to lay out a plan. And I'll tell you, they need to act with intent and not act like a. So let me tell you, I'll tell you a quick story.
Okay.
So at every military base across the country, there is every car dealership, every sleazy car dealership will finance any military person. And there's billboards that says E1 and above, we finance. Now, E1 is actually the lowest military rank. So there's nothing less than that.
It's an E0, right? Yeah. Okay.
They will put them in, pick your car of choice, a Mustang, a Hummer, a Jeep. They don't care, right? At a 58% interest rate. After that, in the insurance, the guy doesn't have money to put gas in his car to go down the street to the gas station anyways. And so the Jets need to not act like an 18-year-old pimply-faced kid who's the first time off base buying the car he can't afford, right? They need to, and that's the Bryce Huff, and that's this, that, or the other, and that's the Devontae Adams, and that's they need to pretend and act with intent, right? Who can we restructure, and then evaluate the holes. This is going to be a draft. This is going to be a free agent, but if they need to act with prudency, which they have not always done in the past.
That's true. I can't deny a lot of the numbers and statistics and things of that nature that you have presented. I can't really push back on any of those. But I just feel like, someone is asking, by the way, can Gator ask, are the Jets tagging anyone? Predictions. The only two candidates I would imagine are Bryce Huff, potentially, and then Greg Zuerlein. I heard Brian Costello mention that. The former Cowboys kicker. That's right. Legatron, Z-Man, old Zuerlein, Greg the Leg. I don't anticipate that happening. That's around 5 million. So I guess technically it's possible, but I don't think. I think they're just going to have a conversation, try to see if they can bring it back from that perspective, which leaves only Huff. And most insiders, even with the cap, Rich Cimini still believes that it's unlikely that the Jets tag him with that. They would try to re-sign him ahead of time, but again, I've mentioned it before. I've had conversations with Bryce, but it just doesn't make any sense that he would want to re-sign ahead of time. Why would he? You'd want to test the open market if you're Huff, and with all the huffing and puffing that we're hearing in the NFL streets, it sounds like he will get a pretty penny from somebody. So that's compelling in its own right. Sacking the quarterback is a premium. I think you are right that 10 sacks, a big credit to that could go to Quinnen Williams, who's eating stuff up on the inside, because a lot of people had career seasons. Off the top of my head, Solomon Thomas had a career sack season. Quentin Jefferson had a career sack season. Bryce Huff himself had a career sack season. Jermaine Johnson had a career sack season. So there's 4, while Quinnen didn't eat himself, he had 5 or 6 sacks, something like that, 4, 5, 6. I don't have them in front of me. But he opened up the doors for everyone else to eat. It is curious to see, because we talked about it earlier this week. That might have been our Thursday show. Someone warned the Jets and the rest of the NFL, man, I get it. Bryce Huff has only played basically 40% of the snaps forever, but just to assume he could just jump to 70 or 80% because he wants to, and you're going to get the same production, but more of it for playing more. That seems like we're just trying to connect the dots here, and there's all kinds of things that could happen, like wear and tear, and maybe not as effective playing that much and things of that nature. But it's compelling because he is this homegrown guy. He was an undrafted free agent. They dusted off the scrap heap, brought in, developed, and he became this guy, and he's super young, and he plays a premium position. So there's a lot of those touchy-feely reasons why Jet fans want to desperately keep Bryce Huff.
Yeah, and it's a big mistake, right? Your needs are not on that side of the ball. And realize this, right?
Okay.
You got to look at it at a different perspective.
Okay.
Right? And it hasn't happened a lot. You have that undrafted free agent, right? You groomed him, you developed him, and you reap the benefits for almost essentially no cost.
Yeah, it was $2 million and change for the 3 years. So his first 3 years, he made like $2 million as an undrafted free agent, and then he made a huge uptick for him. Last year, he played on the second round restricted free agent tender. That was $4.3 million. So yeah, for whatever it is, call it 4 years, he made $8 million in 4 years.
Yeah. So it's time to let him go unless you get some weird deal like we talked about before. Mm-hmm. Mark this down. He will get less than 10 sacks. My belief is he'll get 5 or less sacks next year with whoever he is, unless he goes. Someone else had mentioned somewhere I read, maybe it was on ESPN, that if he went someplace like the 49ers where he was with Bosa or somebody else. So unless some situation like that, he's going to have a market drop off in sack rate and be the bust of the 2024 free agent market. That's my prediction.
Now, this may be an unfair question to ask because I don't know if you know these kinds of numbers, but so the sack prediction, interesting. How much do you think he's going to get? Because that's been a polarizing topic. Former NFL GM Randy Mueller said a bunch of months ago, it was in the middle of the season, so it may be unfair to hold him to it now, but he thought he was going to get 20 plus million per year on a new multi-year deal. And that's like a whoa number. Bosa's at the top of the mark. He's making like 33, 34, 35, somewhere in that ballpark. So that's the top. So he's obviously not close to that, but 20 plus million was the projection. And then Bleacher Reports was in the 14 to 20 range, which is a wide range, I will note. But and then the franchise tag is 21 and change. So that's a number. What's your prediction for average per year? What do you think he's going to get if he reaches the open market?
I would say 15 or 16. I mean,
which would be the Carl Lawson number. Yeah.
Yeah. The franchise tag, I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe, or at least used to be, the average of the top 5 highest paid people at that position.
That's
and so
correct.
To offer that to him is ludicrous, and not the guy that sang at the halftime.
That's Usher, Dad, but that's okay. Ludacris is the one who took over for Joe Rogan, I believe, for his small time on Fear Factor. Not anywhere near as good,
I
but
believe Ludacris did show up at halftime. You're probably getting
oh, he
snapped with
did,
that
but
one.
I thought, okay, never
Yeah,
mind.
okay,
It's
thanks.
a total fail by me. That's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So, anyways, there is no way that he is worth top 5 money. It doesn't even make any sense that he's worth the top 5 money. I mean, the stats are appallingly contrary to that. And the Jets don't need to put that money there. So that's just
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, we have one YouTube super chat in, so shout out to DFF1234. We appreciate all the support for the channel. I'm for keeping Bryce if he takes $15 million, which again was the average per year that Carl Lawson took a handful of years ago. It was a 3-year, $45 million deal. I wonder because Bryce has the double-digit sack season, Carl Lawson never did, but they're both like analytics guys, high pressure rates, and all of the nerds in the back of the room pound the table for the Bryce Huffs and Carl Lawson. So I wonder if coming off the 10 sack season and plus natural market increase from what was that, 2020, 2021, 1, 2, 3. So yeah, so from 2021 to now, paying the same person the same price, I imagine, and the expanded cap, that naturally that same player would get more money. Plus, you consider the 10 sack season, maybe it's a little bit above that. Maybe at a pure market evaluation, that would be 17, 18 mil per year increase, but we'll see. But I think the compelling argument you just made, and thank you for the super chat again, DFF1234, is the allocation of resources. To your point, the Jets now have $15 million available in cap space. They have not made or announced any restructures yet, so more money certainly to add to that pile. But the defense has been top 10 for several years in a row by some of those DVOA rankings and things of that nature. But the offense has been terrible. So there could be an argument to be made to allow Bryce Huff, your fish, to go into the ocean and then reallocate whatever that money would be to the offensive side of the ball. So that's a compelling argument. It's hard to push back on that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that I think the number that the Jets should pay for Bryce, and the people are going to, whatever. I wouldn't pay more than $10 million a year for him.
Oof.
Right? He is reaping it, and he won't stay anyways. It doesn't matter. The Jets need to lay out on the big board their priorities, the money they have, the priorities, what they're going to do to get that, and realize that restructuring a contract is just paying now to kiss your sister later, right? So it's correct. Come back, right? Someone's going to come up later on a family reunion, like, look at this picture of you kissing your sister. Your sister, unless you're Joe Dirt, it's not cool. So what I'm saying is he's nowhere in the top 10 on their priority list, right? You got to get the offensive line, which is going to be the top. You've got to get the wide receiver 2, and you got to get the backup quarterback. And frankly, you've got to get another solid tight end, right? And then I go down the list. And by the way, I've got to think about you got to actually look to the future. If your plan is what's in front of your face, the Jets may go to the playoffs next year and win a game, but then it falls apart as you keep kicking this dead cap money down the road. You've got to look at, when am I going to pay Wilson? When am I going to pay Sauce? And I'm not going to lose them for Bryce Huff. Right. So there's a lot to it. And it's really important to do the prioritization, figure out where you can do plug and play. So people like Devontae Evans, people like Bryce Huff, they're not part of the success, right? Stay away from the car dealerships. The other thing that's right near a Navy base or a military base?
I think does it start with an S?
Yeah, a lot of strip clubs, right? And when they're very packed with customers, right, is on payday. When they're not packed with customers, the day after payday, right?
I see.
Yes. So let's please have the Jets not have that Lamborghini. They can't take it out of the driveway, or the one day a month they have fun at the strip club, and then the rest of it they're walking around eating ramen noodles. So we just gotta prioritize.
It's funny. I must have missed that class in high school about let me teach you kids about the difference between a cap restructure, a contract restructure, and a pay cut, kissing sisters. Okay, missed that lesson in old grade school, but it is an important note for, I think, uneducated fans, whatever the word you want to use, not as informed, not as in deep. That, to your point, someone explained this on Twitter. I think it was done really well. I wish I could remember who it was, but the person said players are all for restructures. They get their money sooner, and it's an NFL cap thing that they kick it down the line. So the players just get their money more up front. They're like, okay, they don't lose any money. They're getting all their money. They're just getting it sooner. On a pay cut, now a brand new deal is being created. So that's not pushing void years or things of that nature. They have to pay the signing bonus they were scheduled to pay, the NFL team does, but they can rework a new number so the player is taking less money than they were scheduled to make. So again, Laken Tomlinson jumps out on that scale as a potential straight up pay cut that could occur. The contract restructures like CJ Mosley people talk about, it seems unlikely he would take a pay cut, but to move money, kick it to the future, it is a dangerous game. The Jets have about $20 million in dead cap for this season alone for some of those ghost decisions they made in the past of Conklin, Uzama, Dwayne Brown, the ghost of Dwayne Brown, all these other guys who are probably not going to play for the team next year, yet they're still going to appear on the cap with some of those ghost charges. So it's compelling, but it is going to be a sad day because I believe the Jets are not going to tag Bryce Huff. I want them to. I don't believe they are going to do that. And then he will join another team. If you're a Jet fan, you just better hope that isn't the New England Patriots. That's not the Buffalo Bills. That's not Miami Dolphins are in cap hell, so they're unlikely. And the Bills are in a terrible cap place too. But the Patriots have a bunch of money, and you could imagine that they'd love nothing more than to grab the Jets' primo pass rusher, give him a bag, and say, "Hey, you want to go chase around that Jets team who didn't pay you twice a year?" So that's my fear that could happen here on February 24th, a couple of weeks ahead of the legal tampering period and thus free agency. That gives me a little bit of heebie-jeebies. Yeah,
I think you're a little aggressive calling him a primo pass rusher for one season of double-digit sacks.
Well, if you look at, again, the analytics nerds in the back, he's up there with Micah Parsons. He's up there with Myles Garrett in pressure rate. That's the goo goo gaga number there for NFL people, and he's up there with all those guys with a limited snap percentage, obviously throughout his career. And people believe if he was higher, he could be even more effective and impactful. So that's what people say.
Sure, 5 sacks next year. Write it down.
Wow.
So, but
Yes.
right, you just need to step away from the shiny object. Okay, look at the big picture. Get an offensive line, right? Let's look at reality. Behind the current offensive line, Rodgers, healthy all year, would not have had a better year than his last year with the Packers. So he needs a better number 2 wide receiver. The only thing we have to worry about is Bryce Huff doesn't rent Lazard's car, right? So that he can steal all the money from the Jets like Lazard did.
We could use that for. I'm just think about that for a second. $44 million. That was the highest paid wide receiver in free agency. It was a tie with several others for the 11 per million year average. But imagine where that $44 million could be reinvested if the Jets could wipe away one decision that they made. That could be offensive line. That could be a more effective wide receiver. That could be Bryce Huff, you could say. I mean, literally, that money could have went to a lot of different places. So that was a clear swing and a miss. The Jets have had a few of those, Trumaine Johnson, throughout their history of free agent misses.
But it wasn't a swing and a miss because you got exactly what was advertised. Unlike a team that's going to get Huff. Oh, we're going to get a double-digit sack guy. Here we go. Oh, crap. He only got 3 sacks. No, you got Lazard. He did a little worse than his average, but not that much because his average wasn't that good. It's a clear example, although you refute this. All right, here's a reality check. They signed him because Ron wanted them to. Even though he wasn't signed yet, they were still talking to him for a long time, right? And he wanted Lazard. That's why you signed him. There's no other reason that you would have paid a middling, and I wouldn't even call him a number 2 wide receiver, right? A middling wide receiver at that rate. There's only one reason. Ron told you to. So, yes, sir. Yes, sir. You get the money, back up the truck. No, and that's also what we need to not do going into 2024.
Wow. There's just a lot to unpack there. There's just a wow. The only last comment I will give on Huff is that He had 10 sacks in the season, which, again, a lot of credit can go to other members of the defense. But the compelling part is that this Jets team played with like no leads, obviously, at 7-10 and winning some of these crazy at the end of the game, like that Giants game in overtime. That hey, there was a great Alan Lazard moment. Great cat Zach Wilson last second, quick spike with 1 second left to send it to overtime. There was a some good moments there. Malik Taylor for the win. So there were some Lazard moments. But anywho, the point that I wanted to highlight is Huff was able to create 10 sacks on a team that never had leads. Imagine if he were to have been on the Jets last year, if Aaron Rodgers was healthy, maybe he has 12, 13, 14, 15 sacks. Maybe he could have gotten to another playing field if you unleashed this bulldog on other teams. When you had leads, you knew they were passing. The Jets were the most run against team last year in the NFL. There's a stat for you. And he had 10 sacks. Okay.
When those people come to put that special jacket on you, just go with them calmly. They're going to take you to a safe place. It's okay. Little mattresses on the walls. It's going to be a nice soothing time for you.
It ain't right. Okay. So we will see what happens with Bryce Huff. But obviously next week is the NFL Combine, as my former radio partner Bud Poliquin would like to call the Underwear Olympics. I do enjoy the Combine, so it'll be running for the next week and change. So
by the way, you should have switched those two statements around.
What's that?
You should have said, I enjoy the Combine, not Bud Poliquin says it's the Underwear Olympics, and then you say, I love the Combine.
That's fair.
So you probably should have.
The phrasing, that's okay. It's 2024. Things are fluid. People are more accepting. We're very progressive here in 2024, so I appreciate it. And we will actually be talking about, if we still are to talk next Saturday, that is the most exciting Combine day there is. They combined them all this year. Quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers will all be working out on Saturday. So we should have some exciting things to discuss from that perspective. And then all the rest of them are Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then one day after Sunday are the big uglies, the Hogmaways, which the Jets should be keenly focusing in on that Sunday, but it should be a lot of fun. Pop, as always, thank you for your insights.
Hey, as always, a pleasure. And for all those that didn't think, really, all this was all about the best interests of the Jets. Stay away from the shiny objects, stay away from the Lamborghinis with the E1 pay, and stay away from the strip clubs, right? Slow and steady is going to get them where they need to be with this team and not burn themselves for the future.
That's good advice, Father. I appreciate that. And the Jets are going to need that advice because we're going to the freaking Super Bowl this next season. So we need to build the foundation to set us up for success.
Let's go to the playoffs first.
Well, that's inevitable. You got to hit the playoffs and get the Super Bowl. So just beep, boop, boop. Formalities. Win the AFC East for the first time since 2002. Get ready to check that one off the bucket list. We're both wearing Jet hats. I'm looking forward to wearing my. I can't wait. I should pre-order the AFC East Jet hat. Boom for the 2024 season. Division champs. Get the shirt, T-shirt too. I'll get the hat shirt combo. Will be very nice. Looking forward to it.
Very nice. Very nice.
All right, Pop. Until next time.
All right.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow morning for Boy Green Daily. Take care, everybody.